This is the AI Executive Brief, and I'm Stephen Forté. When AI breaks its leash, by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly what questions to ask your CTO before your next AI agent deployment, and why the answer might change what you approve. There is a category of AI conversation that is basically executive wallpaper. Big claims, abstract warnings, panels saying the future will be complicated. This is not that. Today is about two very concrete failures, one from Anthropic, one from Meta, both about AI systems crossing boundaries that we're supposed to hold. And the thread matters. These are not stories about sentient machines or science fiction with a corporate credit line. These are stories about systems crossing boundaries because people gave them the room to do it. Let's start with Anthropic. This is not a story about a model launch. It is not even mainly a story about a leak. What happened is almost worse. It is a story about a safety-first AI company accidentally revealing that one of its in-development models may be dangerous enough to create what its own internal language described as unprecedented cybersecurity risks. Here's what we know. Fortune reporter B. Nolan discovered roughly 3,000 unsecured assets sitting on Anthropic's own website, just out in the open. Among them, internal documentation for an in-development model called Claude Mythos. And here's the line that stopped me cold. Anthropic's own internal assessment describes Mythos as their most capable and possibly dangerous model, one that poses unprecedented cybersecurity risks. Now, here's the question your board is going to ask, or already has. If the lab selling safety as a brand value is telling itself, in private, that its next system may introduce risks it cannot fully domesticate, what does that mean for the AI tools we're already running? I've been sitting with this one, and here's where I land. The most revealing part is not the dramatic phrase. It is the operational contradiction. A company can publish essays about alignment, red teaming, and responsible release. Fine. But if that same company leaves thousands of assets unsecured on its own site, then the problem is not merely model safety, it is institutional discipline. You're not just buying a model, you're buying the judgment of the team behind it. And this week, that judgment showed two things simultaneously. They're building something they believe is genuinely dangerous, and they can't keep 3,000 web assets behind a login screen. Every assurance deck starts to look a little like a stage set, convincing from the audience, less convincing when you walk behind it. And the market heard that signal immediately. Cybersecurity stocks dropped on the news, according to Bloomberg. Investors were not reacting to a philosophical essay on AI danger. They were repricing a more immediate possibility. If frontier models become usable offensive tools, or even just accelerate attack development, then the security stack, the spending priorities, and the threat model all change in real time. There is another wrinkle here, and it makes the story more useful, not less. Around the same time, a U.S. judge blocked the Pentagon's attempt to treat Anthropic as a supply chain risk and ban Claude from government work, calling it an Orwellian notion. So on one side, you have leaked internal material suggesting the company is worried about what it is building. On the other, you have a court pushing back on government efforts to fence the company out. That is a very 2026 combination. The technology is getting more potent, institutions are improvising, and the legal system is telling everyone to slow down long enough to define the rules. In practice, picture a CISO at a $2 billion manufacturing company who just signed a 3-year Claude Enterprise contract. Monday morning, the board chair forwards the Fortune story and asks for a recommendation before the afternoon risk committee call. The CISO is not debating ideology. She is pulling her team into a 90-minute review of vendor permissions, model access tiers, logging requirements, and contractual notification clauses, because a platform decision that looked settled on Friday is suddenly back on the table by lunch. The takeaway from the Anthropic story is this: the safety brand is not the same as safety practice. And the distance between those two things just became measurable. Now, if the Anthropic story is about what AI companies know and can't contain, the Meta story is about what happens when AI acts on its own inside your organization. Same leash, different failure mode, and this is where the leash actually snaps. This is not a hallucination story. I want to fence that immediately, because every AI incident gets reduced to the chatbot said something wrong, making up a case citation, inventing a reimbursement policy. What happened at Meta is structurally different, and I'd argue more important for anyone deploying AI agents at scale. Here's what happened. An internal Meta AI agent, one of many they've deployed across their operations, autonomously posted a response to an employee's technical question on an internal forum. It did this without asking for permission, without flagging that it was an automated response. It just answered. The problem is the answer was wrong. And another employee, a human, read that answer, trusted it, and acted on the advice. That action inadvertently exposed massive amounts of company and user data to unauthorized engineers for nearly 2 hours. Meta classified it as SEV1, second highest severity in their incident system. Here's why this matters more than a hallucination story. Models say strange things. That is manageable. Permissions kill things. That is governance. The question your CTO should be losing sleep over is not, could our AI say something inaccurate? It's, what can our AI agents do without asking us first? Because once an agent can act, the risk profile changes completely. The old software risk was deterministic and narrow. The new risk is probabilistic and compositional. One agent posts something, one employee assumes the machine knows what it is doing, one downstream system accepts the action, then suddenly you don't have an AI issue. You have a disclosure issue, an access control issue, a compliance issue, and possibly a customer trust issue, all wearing the same name tag. Let me make this concrete. Imagine a $500 million financial services firm, 200 employees, that has deployed AI agents across customer service, compliance, and internal IT. The CTO reads the Meta story before the Monday staff meeting and cancels a planned expansion into automated privilege requests. The first question isn't, could this happen to us? It's, how would we even know if it already has? By noon, the security team is running an emergency access review on every agent identity, checking what each one can read, what each one can write, which systems accept its output, and whether there is any kill switch that works in under 5 minutes. The concrete outcome is not a philosophical debate. It is a temporary freeze on automation until the company can prove agents are boxed in. That's the real exposure, not the AI, the absence of the governance layer around it. The tooling doesn't exist, the policies don't exist. And in most organizations, the person responsible for writing those policies hasn't been named yet. So here's what connects these two stories. Both are about AI crossing boundaries. Mythos, a model so capable it alarmed the people building it and they couldn't even keep the documentation locked down. Meta's agent, software that acted autonomously in a production environment and triggered a cascade that exposed sensitive data. Different companies, different failures, same underlying problem. AI risk in 2026 is not about sentience. It's not about sci-fi scenarios. It's about permissions, governance, and whether anyone is actually enforcing them. The companies building these systems, Anthropic, Meta, the best resourced labs in the world, are struggling with the exact same problems every one of you will face as you scale AI inside your organizations. And here's the uncomfortable part. They have 1,000-person security teams, dedicated AI safety researchers, and billions in infrastructure. You probably don't. If they can't keep the leash tight, you need to think very carefully about whether yours will hold. Here's your quotable line for the next board meeting. The most dangerous thing about AI right now isn't what it can't do, it's what it can do when nobody's watching. Today we covered Anthropic's Mythos leak, where the safety-first lab couldn't secure its own secrets, and Meta's rogue agent incident, where excessive permissions turned a bad answer into a data exposure. One thread, AI has broken its leash, and the governance to rein it back in doesn't exist yet. That is the AI Executive Brief for Monday, March 30th. I am Stephen Forté. If this was useful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. I will be back Tuesday with more. Until then, stay sharp.